About this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety,
the multimedia
public education, or public health, period. And it's a specific phase of life. Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
Harris said something to the effect that I have no loyalty to this country. I don't know, Kamala. I did serve in the United States Marine Corps and build a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a check?
Trump campaign focusing a bit more now on Vice President Kamala Harris amid growing calls for Biden to drop out. Leading us to the question, what would it look like, a presidency of Kamala Harris?
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go. The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time. Culture is, it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. I really love Venn diagrams. You know, the circles, right? 3 usually.
It's pretty good. That would be, we get 4 years of that. Let's now go off the wall to better understand the background of the vice president and the policies she has supported. So first of all, before we get into the policies and everything, there's this call for her, and one of the first calls for her as a viable candidate came from her own hometown of San Francisco. Remember, she was the DA in San Francisco. It's 7 members there calling for her path to win.
They wrote in a letter, this election is a fight for our democracy, and Harris is the candidate with the most viable path to victory.
That's the argument that the Harris camp is making right now, is that, yeah, Joe might have been the candidate in 20, but is he the right guy in 2024? This is just one poll, Will. This poll has them both losing to Trump more dramatically, Harris actually, but some others have shown it differently.
Yeah, there are polls out there right now suggesting Kamala Harris might have a better path than Joe Biden. Whatever it is today, though, won't reflect what it would be if she were the nominee, when the entire Democratic Party would coalesce behind her after a big fight, and all the media push would get behind Kamala Harris. What would the polling look like at that point in time?
Swing states matter the most, too. I mean, old Scranton Joe would say, oh, I'm better in the Rust Belt or the work belt, whereas with the coastal elite of Kamala Harris play very well in Wisconsin, Michigan, and in Pennsylvania, who knows?
Well, let's take a look at Kamala Harris. Who is she? What has she done? Well, her first real entree into public service, more so than public life, because she was around the San Francisco mayor, Montel Williams, many others. They put her on this sort of public-facing stage, but her first public office was as district attorney, where she was known as, in the beginning, Pete, tough on crime. I mean, during her first 3 years as district attorney in San Francisco, the conviction rates jumped, and she was hard on prosecuting marijuana.
Similar to Joe in that regard, right? She's had a conversion now away from tough on crime, lock them up. A big increase in San Francisco, and part of that was opposition to marijuana.
Yeah, views change now. You've seen the videos of her like talking about weed, pretty much endorsing at least the decriminalization or liberalization of it. That wasn't always the case in California.
No, and there's a big case that sort of ended up defining her time as DA. She declined. She had the opportunity to pursue the death penalty when a San Francisco police officer, Isaac Espinoza, was murdered, brutally murdered. She instead declined to pursue the death penalty, and police unions never forgave her for that. Ultimately, the police said, in fact, at the funeral, Senator Dianne Feinstein delivered a eulogy which criticized Harris, who was in the audience, and got a standing ovation for it. So she's been crosswinds with some of the political powers in California over this.
Now, what did she do, though, when she arrived at the office of senator? Well, she came out strong against ICE, Pete. That's one of the things. I mean, I think she's talked very radically about coming down hard on ICE.
Yeah, it was a defining attribute of her time as a senator. I mean, you remember, she also donated to the bail fund during the riots of 2020 in Minneapolis. This is someone who, ever since what happened in San Francisco, has looked sideways at law enforcement, to include immigrations and customs.
Yeah, she said in 2018, no question, we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role. She supported Medicare for all.
Which is government-run healthcare.
Right, and that's the far left wing of the Democratic Party anyway, so she was in that wing when she was in the Senate.
She's you cannot deny the fact she's an ambitious human being. And when she got to Washington, D.C., she read the tea leaves that moving to the left was politically expedient for her. Deny that record of being tough on crime, push government-run healthcare, and of course the du jour of left-wing politics,
the Green New Deal.
Green New Scam.
And remember, she represented California at this point, which you talk about what wing of the Democratic Party do you represent? Well, if you represent California, like Gavin Newsom, you're going to be representing the far left side of the Democratic Party.
That's exactly right. Well, okay, now she's the vice president. She's got a suite of issues on her plate, some of which she embraces, some of which she does not. This is one she took on, voting rights, which ultimately, I mean, voting rights is the name they give it, but it really was solidifying the loosening, like they did under COVID, of the protections of how we vote. So getting rid of voter ID, more mail-out balloting, more universal registration no matter what. Not talking about making sure you're a citizen or showing your ID, expanding the voter pool.
Well, she was nominated, or she was appointed to be the border czar, and really I don't have much to tell you about this, because nothing much happened. I mean, she was going to get to the root causes and go down to Central America and figure out where all this is coming from, but basically nothing was done to secure the border under her guidance.
And she didn't want the job. She was resentful about it from the beginning. She went to the border only one time. The border's been a disaster. And then, of course, and this is what she has basically premised her entire vice presidency on, is fighting against the overturning of Roe v. Wade and making abortion as universal as possible. I mean, when Joe talks about Kamala, he says, look at what she did on women's reproductive rights. They won't stop talking about it.
And that would be a centerpiece of any presidential campaign for Kamala Harris. It would be based upon identity politics of women and, of course, black women. And it's already being said, if you jump over a black woman, you are courting trouble, Democrats. And you could line them up. We should at some point line up the big names inside that party. They're already saying, you better not look over Kamala.
It's true.
All right, the RNC not only nominating the presidential...
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris.
Hi, we still have questions, obviously. Many investors, many on Wall Street still want more information about exactly what a Kamala Harris economic agenda would be. And we don't know. What we can go now is off of some past statements that she's made about the economy. In the past, she has supported some progressive economic policies for years, as Michael Novogratz just said, including the Green New Deal and, of course, fracking. But listen to her in her own words.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes. And I've, again, worked on that. We need to have Medicare for all. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on. It's simply wrong that we have a situation where the pharmaceutical companies have been dictating prices. Affordable health care should not be a privilege. It should be a right.
So let's take a closer look at some of the things on her economic agenda in the past, whether she was when she was a senator for California or part of course, this term under President Biden. She supports universal health care, eliminating private insurance. We'll see again if that's going to be her agenda now. Universal basic income and rent, paying rent for folks depending on their incomes. Financial transactions tax, which would really hurt the older generation. Pharmaceutical excise tax and a bank tax. Now, if you look at the term under President Biden and what we've had so far, there's been a lot of spending, and that's really what has led to inflation. Let's talk about this. The American Rescue Plan, that was $1.9 trillion. Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, $1.2 trillion. The Inflation Reduction Act, $499 billion, which was a climate bill, obviously. And then student loan debt forgiveness, they've already spent $168.5 billion. And of course, regulation is the other question here. Now let's look at inflation under Biden and Harris, right? Okay, so they got 1.4% in January 2021 when they went into office. Now it's at 3%, but remember we spiked at 9.1% in June of 2022. Look at grocery prices at 20% since January of 2021. Mortgage rates have increased over 144%. So, and then there's questions about J.D. Vance. He went after, he called, the barons of Wall Street. He said he blamed, Wall Street for the financial crisis. So, if you're looking for the investor class to support you, you've got to come up with basically less regulation and, like he's saying, more moderate economic.
Right. There's this Wall Street Journal op-ed titled, "In her campaign debut, Kamala Harris steers left." Some of the speeches that she has already made have upheld some of these big spending ideas. Swing voters, who needs them?
Yeah, I'm stuck on the fact that if you ban fracking, you lose Pennsylvania. It is a binary choice like that.
Yes.
It's not even close.
Yes.
Cheryl, you're going to be on Mornings with Maria in about 23 minutes, and I'm going to join you. I will see you.
Very nice. This is me that I feel left out once again.
You can come on.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the invitation. Cheryl, thank you so much.